I've never had a kid before, but I've always loved my nieces and my nephew. I can remember the way the world looked as a kid, and I can see it in their eyes. That feeling that whatever is around every corner is new and exciting, that what tomorrow brings it'll carry with it the warmth of a sunny day, or the comfort of a rainy afternoon. As a grown man, the sun left my skin spotted and weathered, the rain left me shivering and cold. Life had left me homeless and quite alone. It was easy to feel miserable, but those 3 kids didn't need to have my misery thrust upon them. That light in their eyes shouldn't dim around me, so I always tried my best to be their weird uncle. The one with the backpack and smelly socks, the one with a tooth grin and fun stories. I won't ever tell them this story, though. It was a child I had never met that woke me up that morning, my place of rest still shaded from the morning sun, slick with dew as it clung to my ragged windbreaker. Excuse me? A small voice cut through the morning traffic and buzz of cicadas. It was tinged with hope and fear. I knew those 2 feelings well. My eyes parted slowly, embracing the morning sunshine. I saw before me a small blonde boy. His bushy blonde eyebrows and chubby physique almost immediately endeared me to this kid. I'm awake. My voice cracked as I rolled over. His thick eyebrows furrowed as he spoke again. I'm really sorry to wake you up. I just don't have a phone and I really need to call my mom. His small voice had that deep fear in it that kids always had when they were worried they would get in trouble over something completely reasonable. My lips pulled up into a smile as I rubbed my messy hair. Do you know her phone number, buddy? I reached into my bag and pulled forth a cracked, dusty phone as he recited it by heart. I suppressed a chuckle. Someone had clearly drilled that phone number into him. I looked down at the phone's cracked face as it half-heartedly turned on, only to flash an empty red battery symbol and die in my hands. Fuck, I said under my breath, fumbling in my bag for a charger. Aha, I lightly intoned while I revealed a charger from my pack. Sorry, kid, this might take a minute before you can call her. He swayed awkwardly on the spot as his fear of the whole situation was yet to be abated. I felt for this kid. I knew what it was like to be alone in places you're not familiar or comfortable with. It was my whole life. I patted the seat next to me and smiled brightly, attempting to infuse every ounce of kindness I could into my gaze. "Wanna sit?" He looked indecisive until I pulled out a big bag of Skittles, plenty to go around. He plopped on the bench beside me and pulled a single Skittle from the bag, placing it in his mouth, before grabbing another one. "What's your name, buddy?" He placed a purple Skittle on his tongue. "My name is Trenton, but my mom calls me Trent." I offered him my hand, which probably could have been a little cleaner. "I'm Melvin, but people call me stupid." "Is it okay if I just call you Melvin?" he asked with an adorable sincerity. I laughed and smiled. "That's fine with me, Trenton." He smiled back, now being less cautious with the Skittles. "Do people really call you stupid?" "Sometimes. But I tell them to hang up and call me back when they're smarter." He laughed. "That's a stupid joke." My phone now read 3% as its screen feebly flickered to life. "You can call your mom now, Trenton. Just keep it plugged in, all right?" He nodded enthusiastically and dialed her number. She picked up after 3 rings and a stern but gentle voice crackled from my shitty speakers. "This is Miss Waters. How may I help you?" "Mom, it's me. Jake and his mom left me here." "Yes, about 20 minutes ago. I'm sorry, Mom." I listened intently to the mother's furious tone as she reassured Trenton that none of this was his fault. It was then that he handed me the phone and said, "She wants to talk to you." I made a big goofy frowny face of fear and he giggled. "Hi there," I said casually. "I need your name and location, please." I opened my mouth to speak, but my eyes drifted over the large field of the park for the first time since I had opened them. A small black shape caught my eye as it bobbed up and down. I squinted, and it sharpened just slightly into a shape that could have been a man. "Hello, are you there? I need your name and your location now, please," his mother asked a little forcefully. "I'm sorry, ma'am, I just woke up." "My name is Melvin Poole. We're at Green Park down the trail about a half-mile," I said quickly as to not incur her ire. Yet my eyes never left that shape as it bobbed up and down. It was strange. It had gotten close enough to tell it was clearly a man, but his gait was off. His head rose and fell too much, far more than the inch or two most people's did as they walked at a steady pace. "I'll be there in 25 minutes exactly. I want you to stay on the phone with me for the entire time. Do you understand?" I smiled. She was smart, my name where I was, and not letting me hang up on her. This kid was in good hands. I frowned, however, when I looked at my phone. Its battery was draining quickly. "Mum, my phone's battery is about to die. I'd say you have a minute or two left before it's dead again." I could almost hear her teeth grit through the speaker. "I'll be there in 20. Be prepared to accept my call when I'm close. Understand?" I felt myself immediately feel smaller than her, as her authoritative voice echoed from my phone. "Of course, I'll be here with Trenton. I won't let him out of my sight." Her goodbye was curt and short. My eyes once again darted towards the odd man from across the trail, as Trenton began to speak about a new game he had recently taken up. I did my best to listen, but my eyes won the fight with my ears as my attention was solely focused on the bobbing man. He had been walking in a straight, unbroken line for the past few minutes now. His heading seemed to directly intersect with the shaded bench we now sat upon. Trenton was oblivious to this as he finally had let himself relax. I wasn't about to cut that short, yet I could feel my own body beginning to tense up. There was something so deeply unsettling about this man, as more details began to peek from the haze of distance. His black coat, his black bowler hat. If I didn't know any better, I would have assumed he was attending a Renaissance festival or a funeral. The way he walked, however, made me wonder if he was the reason for the funeral rather than your average attendee. What was worse was that he seemed magnetically attracted to this bench I sat upon now, every step taking him closer to where we resided. I wiggled my charger in the phone's socket to no results. The phone's battery was now completely dead. Trenton laughed at something he said, and for the first time the man's head turned. He slowly brought his head all the way until his chin nearly rested on his shoulder. At first I was relieved, his gaze now broken finally. Yet when Trenton's laughing stopped, the man once again faced the bench as he continued the bob towards us. A cold chill went down my spine. He had turned his ear towards the laugh, as if to absorb every decibel he possibly could. Now I was struck with indecisiveness and fear. Do I stay with him and wait for his mom like she said, or do I grab this kid and run? The man's pace was steady and rhythmic like a puppet on a string, his master's hand steadily making him lurch towards us. The morning sun cast his shadow off to his side. It was so long and thin, as if it too wanted nothing to do with and was attempting to flee from him. "Trenton, buddy, let's go somewhere else," I said, my voice not yet revealing my fear to spare him. He looked at me, his brow once again furrowing. "I can't do that. My mom is coming right here, and I don't want her to be mad at me." My eyes darted back and forth between him and the steadily approaching shape in my peripheral. "She'll be mad at me, but not you, I promise. I think she'll find us faster over here anyway." He frowned and said, "I can't leave. I'm going to stay right here." He stopped and let his head hang. "If you want to leave, that's okay." I tried my utmost to not let an ounce of fear into my voice. I would never leave this kid here alone with this creepy fuck. "I'm staying right here then, all right?" He smiled. The man was now close enough to read his expression. I wish I couldn't. Upon his face rested the most unpleasant smile I had ever laid eyes upon. It was a toothy grin that revealed the spaces between all of his teeth, small gaps to the black abyss that was his mouth. The corners of his mouth were pulled up against his cheekbones in a way that looked like it was carved into marble. I had never seen a man this unsettling in my entire life. His fingers drummed against his leg one by one, too slow to be a rhythm to any music. Just one finger at a time he was upon us. Trenton finally took notice of the bobbing man and stopped munching on the Skittles. I desperately wanted to look away, but I forced myself to be transfixed by his ugly mug. This guy was a threat. My deepest of senses knew this. Every ounce of that superhuman ability we all have within us was triggered by this fuck. He addressed me first, as his gait finally took him within 10 feet of my bench. He tilted forward ever so slightly as he spoke, so his teeth were the closest thing to me. "Thank you so very much for finding Trent. I've been scouring this place high and low for him. His voice was like sour honey, slow and sticky. It clung to the air and lingered. My eyes darted to Trenton as the man spoke. One look at his face told me Trenton has never seen this motherfucker once in his entire life. Who are you? The words didn't have the confidence I wished they did. A friend. The words slithered out of his mouth in a way that made me want to puke. I doubt that. Trenton handed me my phone. I'm going to have the cops here any second. I don't want you anywhere near Trenton. His expression didn't flicker for even a moment as the dead phone was passed to me. I assure you there's no need for that at all. I just want Trent to come with me and I'll take him to his mother. Save you the hassle. Trenton frowned. Stop calling me that. Only my mom calls me that. The man didn't even look at him as his gaze was still fixed upon me. The tapping of his fingers now reaching an unsettlingly fast pace as he spoke. The drumming beat intermingling with his words. I of course can reimburse you for your troubles. How does $100 sound? My teeth clenched. Get fuck away, I said, my voice measured and slow as to not reveal my fear. His smile deepened as his fingers moved blisteringly fast upon his lower thigh. You drive a hard bargain. How about $300? Trenton moved closer to me, hiding mostly behind me now. I drew the pocket knife that I'd been keeping hidden within my bag. Last time I'm gonna say this. Leave. His fingers now moved faster than my eyes could see. His hand just a blur as the sound of his fingers drumming on his leg became one continuous buzz. His eyes finally drifted from me and rested upon Trenton. He leaned in a little closer and spoke in a tone that immediately put me into a fight or flight panic. You little fat fuck. I'll wear your skin while I bathe in your blood. His smile unbroken, he leaned even closer. Trenton spoke. No, I don't want any candy. I don't want to go with you, the man whispered. I'll watch your mother through her window as she mourns you with a mouthful of your spleen. My body instinctively lashed out with the knife as I held it aloft. Trenton spoke shakily. I don't want to see your puppy. Leave me alone. His small voice shaky and tears beginning to trail down his red cheeks. The man jerked forward and backward ever so slightly, his head bobbing up and down as he did so before he turned around and contorted himself backwards. His hands falling in the grass as his upside-down face flashed us with his plastered grin. Horror had me rooted to the spot. His fingers now all drummed the wet grass, spraying his face with small droplets. I'd never seen anything more strange and terrifying in my entire fucking life. He then padded away on his hands and feet, never taking his eyes off the pair of us as he became smaller and smaller, the distinct sound of his tapping growing fainter and fainter. The distance between us did absolutely nothing to diminish my terror. That knife never left my hand, nor did either of us sit. The sound of his fingers stayed between us for an unnaturally long amount of time, as if it was desperately making its way back to us. We waited in silence as I did my best to control my breathing. My white knuckles gripped the handle of the knife, long after the sound of his fingers could no longer be heard. Suddenly a blue sedan came hurtling from the highway into the adjacent parking lot. Trenton ran towards it faster than I thought a kid like him could, and hurled himself into his mother's arms. He babbled and wept for a minute as she stroked his hair. I stayed a good 15 feet away, keeping both them and the woods the freak had retreated into in plain view. Her form grew more and more stiff with each word from Trenton's lips, until she said, Did he say anything to you specifically, Trent? He nodded and said weakly, He offered me candy and to see his little puppy. Her chest rose and fell heavily as she squeezed him tightly. Go sit in the car, honey. We'll be right next to it, okay? I lamely raised my hand and waved at him as he got in the passenger seat. He waved back and clutched the bag of Skittles tightly, his small face a frown of sadness and tiredness. Miss Waters now approached me, her eyes locked onto me, studying me. Thank you for taking care of Trent. I smiled, not an ounce of my usual charm present. He's a good kid. I hope he's okay. Her eyes didn't leave mine. The man, what did he say to my son? I stopped, taken aback. Trenton's answer now finally registering, as well as his answer to the creepy fuck. Horrible things. Fucking awful, terrible shit I don't want to repeat. But I glanced at Trenton. She intoned. That's not what he heard though, right? My brow furrowed deeply. No, he didn't hear what he said. I didn't even think about it at the time, because I was processing what that evil prick was saying. I looked at her. How did you know I heard something different? She didn't answer, but took a step back and sighed deeply. You have absolutely no idea how grateful I am to you. You were there when I failed miserably to protect him. Thank you. Thank you so much. I thought back to my pathetic flailing of the knife in its face. I've never felt more useless in my entire life. Her lips pulled into a frown. If you weren't there to protect my son, I would have never seen him again. Remember that. Her words didn't bring me any solace, only a deep unease as I thought of the implications of her words. She knew that thing. She knew what it was capable of. I sincerely hope that Trenton is still safe. I hope he never heard that tapping of fingers again. I hope that he stays a kid for as long as he can.